So, good morning, good afternoon, or is it good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome again for this wonderful coffee talk session. And we have some amazing youth, this time the other part of the world. We are in Oceania. And let me introduce myself quickly and they can do all the talking. So I'm Alka Patel, based here in London, a heartfulness trainer and a teacher. So pass it on to you.
Thank you, Alka. My name is Clara. I'm 23 years old and from Brisbane, Australia. I'm a heartfulness practitioner. I'm an elite athlete who's currently training very hard for the Birmingham Commonwealth Games in 2022 next year for the 10-kilometre race walk. And I'm also currently working and studying as a civil engineer as well. That's a bit about me, and I'll pass you on to Sam.
Hey guys, I'm Sam. I'm also 23 and also from Brisbane, Australia. I work as a genetic researcher. I have a profound interest for the human body and everything about it, with ambitions to study medicine. Outside of that, I have a love for the ocean, surfing, deep sea like fishing, ocean swimming, all of that. And I'm also a heartfulness practitioner. So that's a bit about myself, and on to our last guest now. Elizabeth, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi, everybody. You're a man after my own heart, Sam. I trained as a marine biologist, but in the field of ecology. And I also grew up by the sea in Australia, and I'm back here because of COVID. A lot of the time I live in India, but I've been in rural Victoria for the last year in the forest with the wombats and the kangaroos, and enjoying it very, very much. And I've been a long time heartfulness practitioner. I also am the editor of Heartfulness Magazine. And we're going to be talking about one of the articles today. It's a surprise. I don't know what article they're going to talk about, but hopefully we'll find out soon. So
it's a good surprise.
Yeah. So Clara, can we have the slides up, please? I love it. So there we go, Elizabeth.
Oh.
Big surprise.
That's why I could not ask you, Elizabeth. So can we have slide one? And why I'm laughing is, as you can see, our own Elizabeth Denley, who's with us today, has been a student of both science and spirituality all her life. Trained as a scientist, she turned her field of inquiry and research skills to the field of meditation and spirituality after starting the heartfulness practice in the late 80s. Here in this article, she shares her thoughts on the importance of self-acceptance. So can we have the next slide, and please come along, who resonated with this one? Yeah.
So I resonated with this quote in the article. We are constantly being told that we need certain things in order to be good enough, but we are not encouraged to discover what those things are for ourselves. I chose this because in my experience, there's been a lot of pressures and expectations from friends and family to be a certain person. And I think it's really important to pave our own way through life and go against the grain. Something that I've learned about myself to be good enough is that I always need, two wings to fly, one being the materialistic and one being the spiritual field to kind of ground us along the way. So that's what I liked about it. What are your thoughts about it, Sam?
Well, firstly, thanks for sharing, Clara. It was very insightful. And yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that there's all these, especially nowadays, where we're caught in lockdown and situations like we are currently. Everyone's spending more time on their phones and not really getting out as much. There's all these kind of like social pressures that are building upon us, and it kind of leaves us little room to figure out almost who we really are, or think deeply into like ourselves. So that's something that this self-acceptance article is really about. Elizabeth, do you have any thoughts about this quote?
Yeah, if I think back to what I was like when I was your age in my early 20s, and I had no clue about this back then. To some extent, I was my own person, but I realized that I was so much affected by the social pressures, so much affected by everything around me. And of course, it's even more now, as you say, Sam, with social media, with all the multimedia pressures, not just social media, but everything we do at the moment is online. And so you're being bombarded from all sides about what's good, what's right. And it's taken me a long time in my life to figure out what I want. And I realize that it doesn't have to be that hard, that it's good to encourage everybody to say, I did an exercise the other day with some people where, it was about, what do you do when you're upset? Well, first you calm your body down, you do some breathing exercises, then you remove the emotional charge from your system, you do a, ocean of peace cleaning or something, a lot of heartfulness practices. But then what do you do? Once you've got that state, it's about asking yourself, or asking myself, what do I need right now? And what are these emotions telling me? Or what is my inside, my subconscious saying needs to happen right now? And how often do we stop and actually do that? And, I've realized that the more you can, and it just takes a second sometimes to go, you know what? I'll tell this person, no, I'll get back to you. I'm not going to make a decision straight away. Give me a couple of hours or give me half a day to get back to you. And then stop and go, what is it I need right now? I faced it yesterday because I'm here in Sydney visiting my son and my daughter, and a lot of friends are saying, come home, everybody, because we haven't seen each other for ages because of COVID. So I was trying to figure out, what are my priorities? What do I do? How do I see 50 people in 3 days? It's not possible. And of course, everybody's genuine, everybody's keen, but I had to figure out, what is it that I need to do right now? Do I need to run around the country, or can I just stop and be in the present and figure out a different way of doing it? So I resonate with what you guys are saying. I still struggle with it, but I tell you, it's much easier at this age because you don't care so much. Not that you don't care, but you've learned to deal with it in a better way, where you can sort of disentangle the expectations from what your heart is saying.
Absolutely, Elizabeth. Sam and Clara, can I also say that I have when I say teenagers, my eldest is 21, doing medicine, Sam. And again, these distractions can bring you down. But going on to what Clara was saying about what the family expect you, and one of the things that as I was growing up in a very sort of religious background, the expectations were norm then for all of us. So anything negative, oh gosh, it was like so big, it just wasn't accepted. But as I've obviously matured and like Elizabeth says, as we get older and we start living our own life and we learn through the mistakes, we find that negativity that will always be there. It's part of our hurdles. There's always something that's going to happen. But we've got to be kind to ourselves. Anyway, not about me. I'm going to go on to the next slide. Was that you, Sam, that like this?
Yeah, this quote. I love this quote. This was my favorite in the little article. And it says, we develop desires, the desire to do what brings pleasure, success, and happiness, and the desire to avoid what brings pain, failure, and disappointment. So when things go wrong, we don't always have the resilience to go through hardship graciously. Yeah. And what I think about when I read this quote was the fact that I think it's very prevalent in society nowadays, is that we're kind of brought up to almost think that succeeding and winning will always bring about happiness. I don't know about everyone else, but that's kind of how I was brought up, like especially throughout school. Like if you had to like achieve like a certain grade or do well in sports and stuff like that, you're always taught and told to kind of succeed and do the best you can, which is completely fine, but you're not really taught how to deal with disappointment and failure. And I think the biggest point in my life when I kind of learned that was when my younger brother was sent to hospital with an acute brain injury. So he was in the ICU for quite a while. He had to learn how to walk, talk, breathe, everything again from scratch. And that kind of pulled me back and like stripped away like all of my emotions to like just my raw self. And that kind of like taught me how to deal with pain and stuff going forward. And yeah, I think obviously not everyone will have this kind of situation, this extreme situation, but I think that being taught how to deal with pain and suffering and even disappointment and really like self-accepting is such an important thing, especially at a young age. So yeah, Clara, do you have anything to share about this little quote?
First of all, thanks for sharing. That message was really profound, and I really agree with what you were saying about having the resilience to go through hardships. I think something I really learned is always know your why and set an intention. That way, if you fail, you know, you have something to fall back on and you know why you did it in the first place. So for example, like being an elite athlete for me is a vessel to inspire change in the community, to really expand human consciousness and, you know, inspire people to leap at a challenge. And then obviously I've had several times where I failed in races and haven't quite got the times that I've wanted, but I always know like why, or know my why in essence. That's really pushed me to keep going and hopefully succeed in the future. So yeah, I really resonate with this quote quite a lot.
Absolutely, resilience, such a fantastic word. May I, Elizabeth, you write this and mentioning we develop desires. Can I ask you to come and elaborate more?
It's just all okay. I want to ask you something, all of you, and you don't have to answer on the spot, but maybe the audience can think about this too. If you had to write down 2 columns, right? So on one column you put all the things in your life that bring you happiness, success, etc., or events, say, that you associate with that. And then you were to write down the events that brought you disappointment, failure, pain, suffering, all that sort of thing. It wouldn't be that hard to do. You could probably pick, say, 3 main events for each thing. But then if I were to ask you which ones had the strongest formative effect on your character and your inner strength, what would it be?
For me personally, it would probably be just medicine, that whole medical field, and like wanting to become a doctor. I think that brings me so much happiness, and learning about the human body is just something that I love doing.
But which ones, Sam, would be formative for you? Would it be the ones, the happiness, the success, or would it be the ones where you had to struggle? Which ones had the most profound effect on your character to date?
That is a tough one. I think both of them equally.
Okay.
And I think, yeah, I honestly think that, because I think I've learned from all the things that do bring me happiness, that's what I want to strive to do and keep doing that. But then also equally, when I do get really disappointed or fail at something, I kind of use that as a building block, and that changes who I am, kind of thing.
Exactly. So, you know, it's just a positive and a negative. It's just a yin and a yang, or a good weather and bad weather. It's not that one's better than the other.
Yeah.
So it's us who look at them in that way. But what I've learned is that if I deal with the challenging things and I get through them, you must know this from your athletics, Clara. When you have a challenge, when you've got to push yourself to the next level of training, say, or the next level of stamina to deal with something, which happens with long distance, anything, whether it's running or walking or whatever. Once you get through that barrier, you feel so good, right?
Yeah.
Because you leapt up. It's like you're going along and then suddenly, whoom, up you go.
Yeah.
And that's a bit like challenges for me.
I think definitely going through the journey is always what makes you stronger. And I can definitely relate that going sometimes the most painful experiences kind of comes out with, you know, growing much more as a person. Yeah. Just like they say, like creating a diamond, you have to, you know, keep hitting at it until it shines through. So yeah. And
so the desires part is just whether we like something or don't like something, you know, and so certain things are positive, we like them, certain things are negative, we don't like them. But it's not that one is better than the other for us in terms of how we grow. You know, they both contribute, as you said, Sam. So it's just a matter of, again, stepping back. A meditation helps with this, obviously. When you pause, you step back and you say, okay, I don't like this very much. You know, I'm not happy about it, but let's see what we can do with this, you know, or, and the successful things can be the trickiest because, of course, you feel wonderful. Something's going really well and you're like, yay, you know, I feel great. But that's when you can get caught because you get a bit complacent and then suddenly afterwards it's like, oh no, you know, I've messed up. So it's just, for me, it's like the weather. Things come and go.
I actually did have a question to anyone who wants to input. I was thinking about, Sam and I were talking the other day and we were trying to think about the difference between having a goal and having desires. And we were saying that it is quite a fine line, you know, to have a desire, but then have something that you're striving towards in the materialistic field.
Yeah, you know, Clara, this is the same conversation I had with my daughter once. And again, a bit like Sam, so from the age of, 12, 13, I want to be a doctor, I want to do the medicine field, went on for years. And one day I sat with her and I said, is that a desire? Because we talk a lot, you know, we watch Daddy's videos and, you know, and I said, is that a desire? Where's it coming from? You know, we talk about it a lot. And it was through many conversations, we realized that she was saying what I felt anyway. It was coming from her deeper layers, her within. And it was everything around her. She was eating it, sleeping it, drinking it, if that makes sense. And that's when I realized actually she's not just the desire to make money and desire to be known for being a doctor. She was really wanting to help, you know, humankind, you know, to be there for others. And it really was starting to show through as she was growing older. So I hope that helps. Between a desire and a goal. But I think, guys, over time, you will realize what it is. Because when you start acting on the desire, as Elizabeth says, it could sometimes hit you in the face and you go, oh, that wasn't good.
You know also that there's nothing wrong with desires. Desires are, you know, I can have a desire to evolve. It's a good thing, right? It's where it's going. So there's the desire, which is like the pull or the push, and then there's the end result that you're desiring. So what is that? What is the object you're desiring? That's what matters. Is it something that is evolutionary for me or is going to take me to something, or is it something that's going to divert me in a different direction? It's sort of, because it's like craving and pulling is a momentum. It's a good thing if it's taking you in a direction that you want to be going.
Absolutely, yeah. Shall we move on to the next one? Okay, so I liked this one, Elizabeth. So I'll just read it out and then I'll invite you to you guys to share. So self-acceptance is a prerequisite to accepting others. Acceptance of others is a prerequisite to overcome prejudice and creating harmony. Harmony is a prerequisite to peace and unity, and peace and unity are prerequisites to humanity's future. I love this. In fact, I just wanted to tell you, Elizabeth, I use this with the children in the class that I teach, because we're talking a lot about prejudice and unity and peace. And they were like, what? Really, a whole lesson on this. I quoted this, so thank you, Elizabeth. Can I invite you, Clara, for this? Because I know you had your heart on this as well.
Yeah. When I was going through the article, I was just going through with my highlighter, and this is the first one that I picked up on. But I just think that self-acceptance is a foundation block and a stepping stone to creating change in the community. And I had to ruminate on what self-acceptance is to me and how I implement it in my daily routines and things like that. So if it's okay, I can share how I actually implement self-acceptance into my days. Yeah, because I think it's one thing about talking about it, but then also implementing it can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. So I was reading, and I think Elizabeth tapped on about our flaws and how we can, go about accepting our flaws is a big part of self-acceptance. And for me, one of them, through the pressures of sport, I used to get a bit of anxiety. So I would really try and focus on how being anxious can also be a positive thing. So it always gave me the energy to act in the moment, and also helped clear my thoughts in some forms as well. And then I would also use methods of reducing anxiety through being present in the moment and trying to clear thoughts about, what ifs in the future that didn't really help in the present. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. I believe we're going to talk more about ways to self-accept. Just would like, if it's possible, just to have the last slide, and then we can have that lovely conversation at the end. May I invite Elizabeth? Would you like to read this for us?
Yeah, self-acceptance goes hand in hand with many other qualities, but it is fundamental to those other qualities unfolding. Yeah, it's so foundational. And like Clara said, you really hit the nail on the head with that if you get this right, everything else just sort of follows on.
I totally agree, Elizabeth. I think it's kind of like a building block for all these other important qualities to come about. And I think that if you're accepting yourself, then you have the ability to accept others and think peacefully and kind of engender these peaceful thoughts and go about life harmoniously. But yeah, it all does start with self-accepting, I think.
Love this silence. I just love that that last quote, unfolding. Would anyone like to add more to that, Elizabeth?
I think for me personally, that when I'm in a state of self-acceptance, when I'm happy with, happy is not the right word, when I accept the way I am in the moment, it's like you said, Clara, presence. You get into that state where it just is what it is. And that can also be that I'm frustrated about something, or I need to change something, or I know I have to work harder on something. It can also be something quite challenging. But when I accept that, okay, this is the way it is, and this is what I have to do right now, then when other people are struggling around me, or when they're having a hard day and maybe they're difficult to be with or whatever, I can just let it go. You know, if somebody reacts badly, but I'm in a good space, then I can think, wow, that's not me. This person's reacting badly. What can I do to help them? So it may be that they've had a really hard day, or they're struggling with something themselves, or they've got low blood sugar, or, you know, I don't know, it could be many, many things. But if I'm in a good space with myself, then my first reaction is, how can I help this other person? Whereas when I'm not in a good space with myself, I'm so bound up and entangled in that I don't see the other person's need. And I think it has to do with me. So it's a huge shift. Self-acceptance gives me that ability to see that we are all what we are, and that's imperfect, and that's okay. We're human beings, and we'll mess up, and we'll also do wonderful things, and we're all fabulous, and we're all flawed, and isn't that great? So it's just, I don't know, it just feels so light.
I totally agree. I think that there's like some points in my life where everything becomes like almost so liquid, and it's just like you can go about life like so freely and think clearly and stuff like that. But then there's also, and in those moments, like you said, Elizabeth, I'm almost like perceptive to other people's emotions, like almost in tune with them, and I can sense like these little subtle changes in people's behaviors. But then I notice there's other times where like I overthink things and put strain on my thoughts, and that's when like I have kind of like clouded judgment almost, and I can't really communicate as well as I would with other people. But what I think I struggle with, because I am kind of new to meditation, I've only been doing it for about 2 or 3 years now, but I'm really good at noticing when I'm in those moments in life when everything is really liquid and I kind of take it as it comes, and it's just like it's easy and happy and everything's good. But then I find it difficult to kind of like get back to that situation if I'm out of it, if that makes sense. Like I think meditation does help and stuff like that, but yeah, it's kind of hard to go back.
So I have a question, and it's some training I'm doing at the moment. I think, Elizabeth, you might know about the heartful communication. And one of the things that keeps coming up is, okay, so say you're in a good space, you've done your meditation or you're having a good morning, but all of a sudden somebody around you, work colleague or somebody, anyone attacks you, right? Are you self-accepting? Do you go away going, oh, it's them, it's not me? What do you do in that situation? Because a lot of people are going through this, and then they take it on board. It creates anxiety and all this going on. Okay, what do you do, Clara? What do you do?
Well, I think it's, when you go through your day, there's so many things that happen which are positive, and then as soon as there's one situation which can affect you negatively, you tend to kind of focus on that one thing and keep repeating it over and over in your mind, instead of looking at like all the things that went super well that day. So I think sometimes just taking a step back, just like kind of detaching your immediate feelings and clearing your mind, and then thinking more deeply about it, and attacking it again later when you're more calm is a good way to start. I'm not too sure.
No, that's brilliant. And
good call.
No, you know why I say that? We're fortunate because we're meditating. I've got to say it. I shouldn't say this about some of my colleagues, but they have a tendency to then go and talk about it to somebody else, and then they'll talk about somebody else. And for that reason, I think they're creating these impressions, what we talk about in heartfulness. And I feel, please don't do that. It's going to get worse in you, and I really want to say something, but I have to hold myself back. What about you, Sam? Have you been in a situation like that?
I think it's really similar to what Clara said, like it's so easy to go through and have like such a positive day, and you don't really think actively about all those positive things that have happened. But then when something bad happens, you draw so much energy towards it. And I think that I'm okay, like kind of good at just not accepting, but kind of like if someone's said something bad to me, I just won't really react or anything like that. Like I'm not a violent person or anything, but it does, like you say, like take a toll on you. Like if you do just let these things come in and all these negative things, and like it can create anxiety. But I do think that meditating, like you said, we're very lucky to be a part of this community that you can kind of like control your emotions or let these things go easily, or more easily than like other people.
Yeah, Elizabeth.
Yeah, this is a good one. I love this topic. There's a reason why the negative stands out. And it's a very good reason because, and my teacher, Daji, well, all our teacher, Daji, says it very often. He says, when things are good, the heart doesn't react. It won't tell you when everything's going well. But when something's not, it shouts at you. It gives you an alert, a warning. And this is how emotions work in the heart. So, you can be going along, everything's fine, and there's nothing happening. And then suddenly, boom, there's injustice. Somebody does something to you that's unjust, or you really struggle with something, or you fail at something, or there's a challenge, somebody hurts you. It can be many things. And what happens? There's a turbulence in the energy field at the subtle level, at the vibrational level. And it's a good thing because it's teaching us something, but we have to learn how to handle it. So one of the things you can do that's very practical is, first of all, settle your physical body. Do some breathing exercises, go for a walk in nature, sit against a tree, whatever it is that helps your physical body to settle down so that it's not in that, from the nervous system perspective, the sympathetic fight or flight response mode. Because when you're in that, you can't think anyway. When that's active, this part of the mind doesn't work. So you've got to do something to sort of get yourself out of that dynamic. And different things work for different people. Some people sing, some people drink a glass of water. There are many things. We have this heartfulness practice called left nostril breathing, which is brilliant for calming your nervous system down. Only takes a minute and it's done. Whatever it is, you need to do that first. Second thing to do is to calm your emotional system down. And in heartfulness, we use cleaning, often with strong emotions like anger or strong anxiety or fear. What works brilliantly is the ocean of peace cleaning, because it's designed for emotional turbulence, and it just really settles that field so that instead of what you spoke about, Clara, about the same thing going round and round and round in your head, even though you've had 20 positive things, the negative thing comes in and it goes round and round. Why? Because there's something to learn from it. But once you've calmed your system down, then you can ask, what do I need to look at in this? Why am I upset? Or why am I angry? Or why am I anxious? And what can I do to maybe do some little step differently? And it could be something as simple as getting a better night's sleep the night before, or, I don't know, communicating better with somebody, or not reacting when somebody says or does something. But when you do this simple sequence of physical calmness, emotional calmness, and then self-reflective question, that anger or that frustration suddenly becomes your tool to say, okay, this is how I can do better next time. And it's brilliant. I mean, I'm not saying it's always easy, because when somebody hurts you, it can take a while to get into that state, but it really works. And these are all tools that we have to just do better.
I think one thing that I also thought about that can be quite helpful is putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, and just kind of realize or try and think about why they might have acted in such a way. And then sometimes that helps to kind of, you know, understand and work it out in like a nicer way.
Yeah.
No, you've hit it on the nail, Clara. Again, going back to this heartful communication, sometimes it's probably nothing to do with you. It's probably their needs, like you said.
Yeah.
And understanding somebody else's needs is so important, because it in the end it helps you. So first of all, and I used to say this to my children, again, especially when they were teenagers at school, and when they're cliquey groups, and one girl from another group would go, to my daughter, she'll come home crying. And I said, actually, maybe it's not you, Ivani, it's probably that girl needs the attention, or she wants more than she's getting, or, you know, we just talk about it. And now, you know, more and more we look at humanity and their needs, the more it makes me understand that that's why there's anxiety, anger, all these things happening. Can I also ask a question to all of you? I love this session this week, this month, sorry, about asking each other, is negative, isn't it okay to have a negative feeling? Isn't that self-acceptance?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's part of nature in some sense of the word, but I think it just is about focusing on moving more into a positive light. Like if we ask ourselves, you know, like what if there was a book about all our subconscious thoughts to ourselves, and we'd read through it, it'd probably be about 95% negative instead of positive. So like we've been criticizing ourselves for so long, I think it would, you know, be really helpful to start changing some of those patterns into like self-acceptance and positive thoughts, and see where it gets us and how much we can learn from it. Yeah.
I totally agree, Clara. And I think it's to go on from what you said, it's almost like what Elizabeth said as well, where there's kind of like the yin and yang, like you kind of have to have the positives and negatives going through it, like throughout your life and on your journey. And we only really perceive it as negative, like they're our thoughts about these negative things. Like if we look at something that happens to us that we perceive as negative and put kind of like a positive light on it, and kind of think about what we can take from this or learn from this as a lesson, then I think that would help like everyone more about a peaceful attitude and be happier in general in life.
You know, Sam, it's something I'm going to bring up, and I know our Elizabeth's going to love this. Our spiritual growth, Elizabeth, we can't just have the positive and be stagnant, can we?
No, of course not. I mean, but even in everyday life, you know, can you imagine if every day was sunny and beautiful? Would you appreciate it after a while?
No.
It doesn't work. Or Sam, you think about going out in the ocean diving. How would the plants be if every day was completely still? It wouldn't work, would it? I mean, kelp forests require storms. You know, we require storms inside ourselves to grow.
Point I was waiting for, absolutely, because you kind of shake yourself up and go, right, come on. that is, even, you know, people say to me, so during meditation, now you're doing it for years, you must be the most, you know, like saintly person. I went, no, No, I've got so many hurdles and I know there's more coming. So I'm going to now leave you with that thought. I'm aware of time and the India team as messaging. But yeah, I'm just going to say this talk is absolutely, profound, like you said. So important, especially in your regions across the world. So can I take this opportunity to thank all of you? I'm not saying we can say goodbye, but if there's anything else you'd like to add, please say.
There was just one quick thing. I was just wondering if Elizabeth could talk a little bit about when you mentioned the ocean of peacefulness, what you were kind of alluding to when you said that.
Okay, there's a very simple heartfulness cleaning practice in which you sit with your eyes closed and you imagine yourself immersed in an ocean of peace. And you imagine the waves, very gentle waves, not big stormy waves, very gentle waves, just washing through you. And as they wash through you, they're removing all the coverings and heaviness from your system. And you sit in that ocean of peace for as long as you feel like, no more than 30 minutes, but you can do it for up to 30 minutes. And you just visualize it taking out all this emotional heaviness. And it's an astounding practice.
I think I'm going to be doing that more often.
It's a good one.
I like that. I like that.
Absolutely. So if there's anything you'd like to add, Clara, Sam, or Elizabeth, please.
Just thank you so much for having us here. I really enjoyed that and definitely learned a little bit, and I'm always very keen to learn more about the heartfulness practice in general because I'm still very fresh to it. But yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts, Alka, Clara, and Elizabeth.
Thanks, Sam.
Yes, thanks for having us. And I really enjoyed just learning and discussing topics of self-acceptance, and I think it's a great way to learn, just having chats about different topics and stuff. So thanks for having us.
So super. So can I remind everybody out there, our fantastic audience, guys, it's not just for the youth, this is for everybody. These sessions that we have every month, and they are, you can go back and see the previous ones, they're on YouTube. Can I say that the Heartfulness Magazine, it's out there every month, fantastic articles, amazing. And yes, it's online and you don't have to pay, it's free. Just go onto the Heartfulness Magazine website and download. And you can actually, Elizabeth, is that right? In many languages as well, is that right?
A few now, yeah. I mean, in a lot of Indian regional languages, but also in the West, a few, and it's growing. So there'll be more and more coming.
Super. So not saying goodbye, I'm saying take care, have a fantastic evening. My morning has just started, and see you on the next one.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.